Welcome to Dark Horse Matters, the show about people, their passion, and their pursuit toward happiness. I'm Bev Matayoshi, your hostess with the mostest, and my goal of this show is to inspire some fire in you to find your passion and go after it. If you're turning in for the first time, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell. And if you're returning, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Today's guest is a real treat. I'm a huge fan of his. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who are killing it in business, but there's something different about this man. He stood out to me. When I first learned about who he was and, everything that he's accomplished, I told myself, I'm going to meet this man. I'm going to meet him someday. And it's actually happening right now. And it's kind of tripping me out. So on his entrepreneurship journey, he went from $500,000 in debt and took it to 9 figures in income. He is a movie producer and author for the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and he represents and inspires the Asian community with his best-selling book that he wrote called How Rich Asians Think, which is inspired by the Entrepreneurship Bible, and one of my favorite books, Think and Grow Rich. He speaks all over the world and inspires thousands of people, teaching them how to succeed in business and in life. And on top of that, because of his goodness to humanity, he has also been knighted by the Royal Order. How cool is that? Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Sir John Shin. Woo!
Awesome. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. And so excited to pick your brain about everything and share with my audience about everything that you've accomplished, everything that you had to do to get there. I wanted to just kind of share with the audience a little bit of how I found out about you. So I was, I'm in the financial services industry, and I was fairly new, and my mentor was trying to encourage me to go and, invest in myself and learn more. So I learned about the Next Level Growth Academy with Synergy Financial, which is a huge financial firm under Dan Charlier, huge guy in the business, and everybody learns so much from him. And my mentor, encouraged me to go and learn from this. And to tell you the truth, I was being a total slacker. I was like, oh, I have so much going on or whatever's. And you were the opening talk for that whole program. You're the orientation speech. And to tell you the truth, I didn't even show up that night. I, watched it on replay. That's how much of a slacker I was that night. But when I watched it, I was so inspired by your talk. And I actually still have it saved. So whenever I need a pep talk, I go back and listen to it over and over again. So
Sure.
it's been really cool. And the fact that I'm, sitting here virtually with you is just so it's kind of like a dream come true. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just kind of wanted to ask you before we go into your journey, where are you originally from and where did you grow up? Like, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah. Well, both my parents are from Asian descent, as you can probably tell, right? And, both of them came from Korea, South Korea. Very traditional Asian parents. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Just, they were the ones that said, go to college, get a degree, become a doctor or a lawyer, such a noble profession. And so they thought, what better place to really, give our family and our generations to come an opportunity. So they left Korea, came to the United States in 1967. And when they got here, they ended up in the Los Angeles International Airport. They got in a taxi, drove down the street, had no idea where they're headed, but they headed towards an area called East LA. And so there we were, just a few blocks away from what they call the original Tommy's Burger here in Los Angeles. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny. And I remember you saying that that's in the
Yeah,
Rampart district, right?
that's the Rampart
My
District.
I lived in LA for 15 years. I went to University of Southern California.
Oh,
My sister lived in that area. So
oh
I
my
know
gosh.
exactly what kind of hood that is. And
Yeah,
Tommy's was kind of like a landmark for USC. We actually went there as a tourist attraction when I first moved there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very, so I know exactly where you're talking about. Wow.
Yeah. And so I did that and grew up there. And then eventually our parents saved money and we moved to a different city called Eagle Rock, California. And then from there, I grew up then we moved from there to Glendale. And that's where I grew up pretty much my whole life. So I grew up in Glendale. And I just remember all the time my parents just constantly asking how my grades were, just so that I can actually go into a good university or college. And I kept on saying to my parents, I'm like, why do I have to go to college? College just seems so silly, because they said, well, because they make you smarter. And I said, yeah, but I'm taking math classes. And I don't understand why I got to take math when I have a calculator. Like, why do I have to learn how to add stuff or multiply when I have a calculator that does it for me? And so, it's a very traditional mindset that my parents had. The one thing my mother basically ingrained into my head was that we did not come to this country to screw up this opportunity, right? I mean, just think about it. I think too many people take for granted the opportunities that are right before them, but they don't jump on them. They're always looking for the right time, or no, this isn't for me, or I never saw myself doing things like this. Well, a lot of times the things that you want to do in life aren't ever thoughts that are things that you ever thought you would have to do, And so I went to college just to appease my parents. I graduated and I went and got a job in corporate America. I hated every single moment of it, Beth. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? And I always ask people, I said, hey, how long has that person been here? It's always been here for 20 years. How about that lady over there? Oh, 25. I'm like, man, they must be really miserable, because you could just tell by the way you look at certain people and how they carry themselves every day that they were not happy, that they were just there to get a check, just to pay the bills. And you could tell they were not passionate about showing up to work. And you could hear the little chatter amongst employees and saying, oh my God, that guy probably hates his job and she hates her job. And there were all these fingers pointing at each other. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to be that person, that I want to be somewhere where I'm unhappy with what I do. And so I said, maybe this corporate America thing isn't for me. And so long story short, my wife, Arlene, and I, we got in business in 1994. And so we got in business, and that we weren't making any money, Bev, but I got to tell you, I felt free. I felt like, I don't know what price to pay. What is the price that you pay for freedom? People pay with their lives for freedom. And here I was in the greatest country, and I finally felt free that I could do what I wanted to do. So that's how we got into the financial industry. And that has been one of the most magical things that have ever happened to us.
Yes. I can totally relate. Like my dad's Japanese, but he was born and raised in Hawaii. He didn't speak Japanese, but his parents were from Japan, Okinawa. And my mom's Filipino. He met her when he was in the army. But so I'm from Asia. I know exactly what you're talking. My mom would always tell me, I would tell her, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a rock star, like that's was my dreams, and she was just like, oh, I think you should be a pharmacist. Like she wanted me to go to pharmacy school. And, in turn, I ended up being a dental hygienist. I went to dental hygiene, and I love that. I'm passionate about that too, but it's just weird how, they have these ideas for you and what you should, they really think about, okay, what are you passionate about? Let's focus on that, you know? So I can totally relate. When you were a kid, did you have any dreams outside of what your parents expected you to do? Did you ever think about what career did you like, anything totally out of this world, different from what the view that they had for you?
Yes, of course. I think I always wanted to be in the movie industry, right? I always want to be in some sort of a movie, an action movie. I wanted to be an actor my entire life. And, my parents always said, hey, you could do that stuff later in life, but you need to go to college and get a degree. But why? And they said, because if it doesn't work out, you have something to fall back on, right? And I think that kind of programming is an issue for a lot of people, that there is a backup plan. There's a backup, a plan B. And so the reason why I think that mindset is so silly, something for you to fall back on, it's like saying, well, you got a car. Okay. And they go, I'll ask somebody, do you have a car? And they said, yeah. And I said, okay, great. What's your backup plan? Do you have a horse? Right? I mean, how come you don't have a backup plan for your car? So it's interesting, the mindset when you go, oh, okay, I want to have a backup plan that if this business doesn't work, right? And that they have something else to fall back on. So I've always been one of those people that once I dove into the business, and especially, let's say, the financial industry, that once I got into that space, that was it. I was all in. There was no plan B. Like, this had to work. And that's one of the things that most people can't do, is because they can't make firm decisions. So when I've said this to people before, that if you look at the word decide, okay, the word de, comes from the root word of to do, the Latin root word to do. And the word side means to kill or to die. That's why we have pesticide, homicide, suicide. It means to kill. So when you look at the word decide, it means either do or die. And so if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to go start a YouTube channel, you're going to go and do a podcast, it is not going to be easy in the beginning. You may not see the results, right, that you want to see in the very beginning. But you just got to stick with it. And there is no other thing. If you're going to be a podcaster or YouTuber, you just do it until you become an iconic podcaster or a YouTuber. The problem with social media today, Bev, is that when you look at television or anything else, magazine articles, they only illustrate the people who have crushed it. Right. And so when social media, all we look at is successful people, we think that's the norm. We think that everybody can become a successful entrepreneur or business person or an actor or celebrity, but it's not as easy as everybody thinks it to be, And so I tell people, be careful when you watch stuff on social media, or if you're watching, TV or Hollywood or whatever, a lot of these people, you're only looking at the one percenters of the one percenters. So you got to pay the price. And by the way, I hear a lot of people say, yeah, but I want to make enough money so I have residual income, so I don't have to do anything later in life. There is no such thing. There is no, I tell, show me one person that that does nothing, and continues to get paid. Okay. Because if it does, it ain't going to last very long. And they said, yeah, but that's why I'm in multi-level marketing. I'm in network marketing because I don't have to do anything. Well, that is the biggest BS I've ever heard. Now, when people say BS, like, oh my God, John's swearing. No. The word BS, or the letters BS, is an acronym that stands for your belief system. Okay, you actually believe, not you per se, Bev, but others out there that can hear us right now or will be watching this in the future. Their belief system is that they can work for 2-3 years and then stop working and then ignore their business and expect that money to continue to last for the rest of their life. There is no such thing. Even in network marketing, you got to do follow-up calls. You got to call your associates and your downlines and whoever. There's constant, you're going to be doing something. There is no such thing as not working and continue to make residual income.
That's very interesting way to look at it. Because, a lot of people don't think about that. But like, you think about the people who have succeeded, though, and everything that they had to do to get to that point. Why would they want to not do anything? I feel like when people are at that level of success, there's no way they can be happy doing absolutely nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I tried, I always wanted to know what it felt like to just be a lazy bum and just lay in my bed after I woke up. I couldn't do it. Even this morning, right? Last night we had an awesome party here at my house. Actually, we had about 70 people at my house, and it was an incredible event. And we were exhausted leading up to it. And I said, when we were going to bed, I said, man, I'm just going to sleep in all day. And guess what? My body just woke up right at the normal time, like I do every other day, because that's just the way I'm programmed. And I sat in bed. I said, wait, I just opened my eyes. Thank the Heavenly Father that I got another chance today. But I tried to sit there and just hang out in bed, and I couldn't do it, Bev. It's hard to be lazy because, as you just alluded to, is you're programmed that way. That's why I always tell people, I said, most people are wired for success, but they're programmed to fail.
Yeah, I like that. That's so true. Um, I was thinking about you and your everything that you have done to become successful. Have you always, and you're in the financial industry, have you always had a good relationship with money, like your whole life, or is that something that you really had to learn? Because a lot of people don't, they're brainwashed, like you have there's belief system about money and how it works, but until you sit with someone and actually learn about it, you really don't know anything because they don't teach this stuff in school. So,
Mhm.
did you ever, what kind of relationship did you have with money prior to joining the financial services?
So both my parents worked. My dad was an X-ray tech. My mom was a nurse, and they realized very quickly that even being a nurse and an X-ray, being in that medical industry, that they weren't going to be rich. So they went and got into a lot of different businesses. They bought a liquor store, that traditional Asian, liquor store. They started the dry cleaners. They had the delis. And I remember my mother one day said, "Oh, we made this much today, right? Or this month we made this much money." And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And I remember my parents actually saying to me, yeah, but half of it's going to go to the government. And, maybe at that time it could have been a little bit of an exaggeration, but if we look today, it really isn't that big of an exaggeration, because the federal tax rates are at 40%. If you live in California or New York, you're 13 to 15%. There's half your money going to the government in the form of taxes. And so I was thinking there has to be a way to mitigate those taxes that we pay for. And so why work that hard? So we're going to work that hard. If I made 100 grand, let's just say, just using easier numbers, or let's just use $1 million a year in income. I made $1 million a year and I paid 50%. That's 500 grand in taxes. Look how hard I worked to generate that money. What if I spent a little bit of my time to learn how to mitigate the other 500,000 if I can keep that by just educating myself a little bit about money and taxes? So I did. So when I go and when I wrote my book, and you alluded to it earlier, How Rich Asians Think, I went and interviewed a lot of successful people. And, whether they were actors, musicians, celebrities, models, whatever, what was really interesting, Bev, is that they were all financially savvy to some level. Now, I'm not saying they were experts, but they were pretty financially savvy. Like Will Smith, most people think like Will Smith, like, oh, that guy's just a rapper. He's just an actor. What does he know? He's just a Hollywood icon. That guy is super, super smart when it comes to money and business. So I tell people, you got to go and learn a little bit about that stuff, and educate yourself. I'm not saying you got to be an expert, but you got to go and learn it to some level, which is what I did. I actually did. I took it a step further, though. I wanted to know it so intimately that I decided to go to law school to learn federal income tax and tax law, So
Yeah, growing up, my dad, I think I remember seeing the book Think and Grow Rich in his bookcase, but I never thought of anything of it, growing up.
mhm,
He
mhm.
was always really good with saving. I used to call him cheap, actually, behind his back, but we never learned that from my parents. My parents were actually really good with saving and being reasonable around money, but
Mhm.
I just never learned that skill. For me, saving meant that you were going to spend it, So I behaved badly once I cut loose and went off on my own. I learned the hard way, and being in financial services actually has been the best thing that ever happened to me because it's so educational. And what the best place to learn about it is in the actual field, I think.
Yeah,
Amazing,
yeah.
amazing eye openers.
Yeah,
But
I remember getting my first check in corporate America. I was so excited. And at that time, I was actually making 30 grand a year. That was my starting pay. And at 30 grand, you make $2,500 a month. And I remember getting my first check and I was expecting $2,500. And it was a lot less than $2,500. But in our culture, or at least, it's interesting, they say that you're supposed to take your very first paycheck and give it to your parents as a token of respect and appreciation. And so I've talked to my other fellow Asian friends, and many of them said never heard of that one before. So I think it was just in my family. So I came home to give my father and my mother my very first check. And as I was handing it over, I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I thought it was going to be 2,500, but they take so many of these little things out of my checks. It said UD and FICA and all. And I said, where does this all go? And he said, oh, FICA. And he's lived in this country for 60 years now, and he still has an accent. And this is what he said to me. He goes, I go, Dad, what does FICA, F-I-C-A stand for? And you know what he says to me? He goes, oh, that is a good question. FICA stand for pay for Social Security. I said, what did you just say, Dad? And he goes, it pay for Social Security. And Asians have a hard time rolling that L. Okay. So he kept on saying Social Security versus Social Security. And guess what? It is a little so right now.
The irony.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I said, well, but Dad, what does FICA stand for? I understand now it pays or funds Social Security, but what does it stand for? And he said, it stands for funds I cannot access. There's a lot of validity to that too, right? Because a lot of us right now may not have access to that money in the future.
Yeah, that is so funny. I love the way it really painted a picture, hearing the sound of I could hear your dad's voice. My mom spoke with a Filipino accent, so I hear her voice all the time in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
So you went from being $500,000 in debt, prior to making your millions. So what was it like at your brokest level? Like, what was that? Have you ever had one of those moments where you're just like scrummaging through the couch cushion, going to Coinstar? I don't know. Like, what was your experience? Like, have you ever had experiences like that?
Well, yeah, definitely. The thing is, I could have probably just went to my parents, and my parents are so loving, so caring that they would have said, oh, if you need money, let us know. Okay. But it was just my pride, my ego, where I couldn't go to them and say, Mom, Dad, can I have X dollar amount, So they never really knew. But yes, when I say we, Arlene and I were so broke that we couldn't even pay attention. Okay. That's how broke we were. Okay. Let me just tell you, we got married August 13th. Okay. 1994. That's when we got married. August 13th, 1994. So you go August, September, October, and November comes around. We're now about to have our very first Thanksgiving as a married couple. And, you would think, oh, big fat turkey and stuffing and cranberries and green bean casseroles or whatever. Man, I was like sitting there thinking to myself, where are we going to get the money to have a Thanksgiving feast? And I remember coming home late at night, and I walked in and I didn't see my wife. So I was like, where is she? So I went into the bedroom, didn't see her. And I go into the closet and I see the light on. I walk in there and there she was on the floor. And you know what she was doing? She was rolling up coins. I said, what are you doing? And she says, we're going to have our very first Thanksgiving feast, but we can't afford it. So I scrounged up all the coins to roll it up so that I can go to the bank, exchange the coins for some bills, so I can actually give bills at the grocery store rather than handing over rolls of coins. And she was very emotional. She was crying. And I thought to myself, what kind of a man am I that my wife is rolling coins so that we can celebrate our first Thanksgiving together? And that hit me so hard, Bev. I said, from this moment on, never again, never while I'm alive will my wife have to roll coins for us to celebrate a holiday season. So
Wow.
every year when Thanksgiving comes, I am grateful that we are in a position, and we overindulge now. You know what I mean? We have too many pies and cakes. And I mean, it's almost like, embarrassing how much food we make, but it's because I just never want to be in that situation ever, ever again.
Yeah, that I can see how that would just hit you hard. I mean, like Thanksgiving is like one of the most, I don't know, it's always been one of my favorite holidays growing up, and there was always an abundance of food. But I have experienced those college years, Thanksgiving was like, and it's funny because I had the house where all the strays would come. I mean, we
Yeah.
cut everything with the same bread knife, you know, but everyone came to our house, even though we didn't have much, it was kind of like the place where the strays came to have Thanksgiving, but we would make the best of it. But yeah, I can see like, I mean, I've been through those moments too where it was like peanut butter sandwiches and, Simon, the top ramen Simons, that was like our everyday meals, never
Yeah.
again, never again.
Yeah.
Was that like your breakthrough? Like what people always talk about finding your why, what gives you that drive to really really make it happen and just create that momentum for success? Like, I know that's probably part of it, but what was your ultimate why that made you drive forward?
For me, I would say it wasn't my kids because I didn't have any kids, right? But I would say that it was for my parents. And so, one of the things is I didn't want my parents, and a lot of our family members have, most people in America, they've never seen a third world country. They haven't seen the struggles in other countries. Most people in America have never seen war. They might have seen it on TV or heard about it. But, when your parents are telling you how many times you've been, under siege by an enemy, and the life that you couldn't even have your own name. They made you even change your own names. You couldn't even go out there freely. And that's why I just wish everybody really understood the freedom that they have in this country that we live in. And so I did not want my parents to die. All they saw was just horrifying moments their entire life, And so my main goal was to make sure that they were able to witness that them making the risk, taking the risk and making the sacrifice to come to the United States, right? And seizing every opportunity that came their way. And they worked their fanny off for my sister and I to basically have the things that we have today. And I didn't want it to be just, normal, average, ordinary. I wanted them to see, us kind of be, ultra successful. And so, I was talking to my parents last night, and my sister, by the way, is the first Asian and the first woman to become the dean at Pepperdine University.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah. So she's the first woman. So all the women went crazy when they found out a woman finally became a dean at the university. And then the Asian community just erupted when they've heard that it was an Asian woman as well. So she kind of hit, two different ethnicities or cultures or demographics that really the university has never had. So I said to my parents, in fact, it was this last night, my mom had called and I was talking to her on FaceTime, and I said, man, you have to be so proud, you and dad, that you guys both raised incredible children. You guys have been such wonderful role models. And so, yeah. And the one thing I think that, I don't think the school system will fix our younger generation today. Okay. People are like relying on so dependent on our educational system. It's not the teacher's job to raise their children. It's the parents' job to do that. It's the parents' job to show their children the love, the support. And I think that's exactly what my parents did for me. You know, my mom and my dad have been incredible role models. So I think I have a bit of an advantage over other people right now because, you know, my mom would always she never said, if I got a C or a D on a report card or a term paper or something, they never said, oh, you're so stupid. Look at you, you pathetic little crap. You know, I mean, they never said, they said, oh, you got a C. You know what that means? You could get a B now. You're that much closer to get a B. And then if I got a B, they're like, yo, you're that much closer to an A. Just a little bit more. You have to do just a little bit more. And they constantly dangled the credit, no, not the credit, the carrot in front of me. And then they constantly EPR'd my sister and I, right? And EPR, for people that are going, what's EPR? Well, they say that if someone is suffering, you know, because they can't breathe, you know, or the heart's not working, they need CPR, right? CPR. Well, we can't go around and give mouth to mouth to everybody that needs help, okay? But we can give them EPR. And EPR is to encourage people every day, every second, every minute. The letter P stands for praise. You know, you praise people every day. And then the letter R stands for recognition, to recognize people every single day. You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday as well, coincidentally, and they said that one of their employees was going to be retiring after 30 years of service. 30 years of service, they committed to an institution for 30 years. And they said, what are we going to do for this person? So they went all the way up to the corporate ladder and said, hey, listen, do you guys have a budget for people that are retiring after 30 years or 35 years or 40 years? And they said, no, we don't, but we can give them a gift card for $50. And they said, a gift card to where? And they said, get them a gift card from Panera Bread.
That's horrible.
And I thought to myself, as I'm listening to this last night, right? I kid you not, I wish I would have recorded this conversation. Can you imagine somebody committing and sacrificing their life to an organization for 30 years, and after 30 years getting a $50 gift card? I mean,
and that's because they did away with pensions these days.
Exactly, right? You know, there's no budget for those people. And that's what I mean, is to just treat people better and treat people right. You know, I see a lot of people right now, if you drive around, you know, today, here we are in the year 2021. So if someone ever sees this video 30 years from today, they're going to know the year 2021 is the year, the second year of a pandemic. Okay. And we see help wanted signs everywhere. Everywhere there's help wanted signs. And they're calling this this era, the Great Resignation. Not the Great Depression, it's the Great Resignation, because everybody's resigning. And when people say, well, why are you resigning? One of the top 3 reasons of why people are resigning. Number 1 reason, underappreciated. Underappreciated. I mean, seriously, how hard is it and how expensive is it to encourage people, praise and recognize people daily? If you just did that, you would keep your people from quitting. That was number 1 reason. Okay. Number 2 was a hostile work environment. Okay. So it's just the environment wasn't very friendly. It wasn't fun. People want to wake up and go and hang out and have fun while they're actually working, right? And get this, the top 3 was not even money. So a lot of corporations think it's just money, 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 but it wasn't even money. Mm-hmm. And so I tell people it's so important that you treat your employees right, treat your people right, treat your staff right, and you'd be surprised how much more they'd be willing to work for you and do things that you don't even ask them to do, you know? Right. But anyway, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but it was just interesting. It was just talking about somebody, EPR.
I
Somebody after 30 years getting a $50 Panera Bread gift card was just almost offensive.
No, I love that EPR. That is really powerful. And you think about it, like, in the workplace, that's like that's like what creates culture, like that's what people look for if they want a job, and that's what makes a place stand out. The businesses that strive have that, you know. So I really appreciate that
By the way,
explanation.
before I forget, Bev, number three was no vision for the department or goal or the company.
Yeah, shared
You
vision.
know,
That is
yeah,
very, very, very important. Like it's the
yeah,
most important thing.
yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's very valuable. Thank you for sharing that. John, I wanted to now kind of talk about, how you got into the movie industry. Like, how did you become like that is just how do you go become a producer? Like that, I mean, is that something you always wanted to do? I know you want to be an actor, but how did that transition happen? Like, where did that dream start?
Great question. So, Arlene and I were actually sitting in the kitchen one morning, and we said to ourselves, I wish we can get our kids to read Think and Grow Rich. And she said, yeah, good luck. Well, because, and it's not because they're dumb or ignorant, right? It's because the younger generation today have so many more resources than what we had in the 70s and 80s, right? So remember in the 70s and 80s, you went to work, you went to school, you came home, and when it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, that was it. Like, I mean, there was nothing else to do. You actually got to go home and rest, right? And turn on the TV, okay, and read a book, or read a book, right? That was it. Or something called a newspaper, if anybody even knows what those things are, right? It was a newspaper. Today, this younger generation now they have access to YouTube. They got great podcast shows they can go to, like yours. They can go and listen to audios and things like that. And I said, yeah, but I really wish they would read the book. And she says, they're not going to read a book. And I said, it would have been better if they would have had a movie based on this book. And Arlene says, well, I'm sure someone's made a movie out of it. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to see if I can order one. So I went onto Amazon and didn't find one. Then I went to Google, did a search, couldn't find one. And then I thought, maybe there isn't one. I went into YouTube and looked for a movie, couldn't find one. So I said, Arlene, I don't think there's a movie. And she says, what? I'm like, yeah, there's no movie on it. I'm like, how can that be? The number one sold book in America, non-religious book, okay? The number one sold book, 200 million copies, right? And there's only three other books that have crossed over 100 million, which is Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and the Twilight Saga. But no other book has crossed over 100 million. And I thought, let's go get the rights. So we call up the Napoleon Hill Foundation, our team, and we actually got the rights in 2015 to make a movie. Now, never done a movie in our life. So what do we got to do? Got to recruit some people. And so we got directors and writers, and we got costume people, artists, editors, special effects, all these different people, got them on our team. We went to full production 2016 and 2017. And then the movie came out. We did a theatrical release with AMC and Regal in 2018. And then we went to the digital platforms in 2019. And then 2020, it went retail with Walmart and just went crazy. And it's still selling today. Here we are, 2021. It's still blowing up right now, record sales right now. So we're very, very blessed. But I'm also excited that people are actually reading and the book now that they saw the movie. Now they're actually going to read the movie. Yeah. Or read the book. Yeah. There you go. That's right. Two best books right there. That's right.
Yes, I love that book. It's something I hold with me all the time. I always reference it, and every single time I read it, it's something new I find in there, something I highlight that's new. It's just such a great book, and it's such a really amazing resource that is timeless. It will
Mm-hmm.
always be relevant to whatever time, even years from now, it will still be relevant. And I think that's
Right.
why it's so brilliant. So that is so cool. You just thought, oh, there's no movie? Let's make a movie. And then it happens. Like That is truly inspiring. I love that. So
Yeah, and and one of the things I said to everybody is to ask without what? Without
fear.
fear. That's right. And I remember when you reached out to me, you actually said, "Hey, John, one of my takeaways after listening to you speak was to ask without fear." And so here I am. I'm asking you to see if you'd be on my podcast. And what did I say? I
You
said, in
said
a heartbeat.
yes.
Yeah, of course.
I love that. I just, that is so powerful and it works. It totally
That's right.
works. It's a dream giver. Just asking without fear. I love it. So, with your book, how that's another question I wanted to ask you. Like you made the movie, now you have this book that you're very inspiring a lot of people out there. What inspired that project?
Oh, that's a great question. So when the movie came out, a lot of organizations asked if somebody from our team would come out and speak about the movie and if we would show it at their event. So we said, yeah, absolutely. Well, nobody on our team likes to do public speaking. So everybody said, John, you go, you go. And I said, all right, and so I went to speak. And one of the events I went to had about 5,000 people in the audience. I went up and did my talk. I got off a stage. And as I was walking off the stage and walking to the side of the room so I can, exit the room, I got mobbed in a good way with people that wanted selfies and autographs and this and that. I was so honored that people loved my talk or my speech, whatever you want to talk about in my message. And people started saying, John, what's the name of your book? You never mentioned the name of your book. And I said, oh, my book. And they said, yes. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, tell you what, give me your business card or your email, and I'll send you a digital copy. And they're like, oh, my God, here. And I walked literally in my suit pockets. They were my jacket, my pants. I probably had 500 business cards and emails. And so I took those and I came home and I pulled them out, put them on the table. And my wife says, so how'd it go? And I said, it was amazing. And she says, so what's next? And I said, I need to write a book. She goes, what? I go, I got to write a book. She's like, why? And I said, see all these business cards? She's like, yeah. And I said, I told them I'd send them a copy of my book. And she says, but you don't have one. I said, I know. I don't want to be a liar. So I got to write a book. She's like, you're crazy. And so that's how it started, and
that is freaking amazing. You
yes,
crazy, crazy. Yes, you are in a good way.
yeah. Crazy rich Asians, So I went on Amazon and Google and started doing some research and like, what do I write about? What's the story? And then I thought, and as I was doing that, I realized there was a Think and Grow Rich Black choice. There's a Think and Grow Rich Latino choice. There's a Think and Grow Rich for women. I'm like, oh, these are awesome, and I bought a copy of each one of those. And then I typed in Think and Grow Rich Asian and nothing came up. So I typed in Think and Grow Rich Oriental. And then I typed in Think and Grow Rich Asian Pacific, and nothing popped up. And I'm like, come on. And then I called the Napoleon Hill Foundation again. I said, hey, I know you guys have a Black, Latino, and a women. Do you guys have an Asian version of it? And they're like, no, John. And I'm like, what? I said, why not? And I said, we just haven't found the right author. And I said, well, what are you guys waiting for? What are you looking for? And they said, well, we're looking for somebody, and they kind of go down the list. And I said, I only know, now I know why you don't have anybody, but I think there's only one person that meets that profile. And they said, who do you think that would be? And I said, me, I'm your guy. And Don Green, who is the executive director and the chairman of the board, said, John, you would be marvelous. We would love to have a partnership with you. And so, so we wrote the book with the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
That is so cool. Were you like directly involved with choosing who you interviewed for the book?
Yeah. In fact, I did all that. In fact, the only thing they really did was they actually proofread it. And then they made a few changes on, some of the language, because all I was doing was there was a couple of things where I said, I was quoting people and they said, oh shit, SHIT. And they said, oh, can we change that to poop? So like they didn't like some of the language that I chose, so they kind of edited those things out. But in terms of the main content and the structure of the book, that was all us or me.
Very cool. So the people that you interviewed, like, did you just had the team reach out to them, or you reached out? How did you get them to say yes? Like, people, you interviewed some really big people on there, like Keanu Reeves and, Lucy Liu. Like, that is just, and Steve Aoki, love that guy.
Yeah,
How did you get them to say yes?
the same way you asked me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is so amazing to me.
Here's what I thought to myself. I said, this should be an honor for them to be in the book too, right? Because there's so many successful stories, so many amazing people out there, but you can only have so many people in your book. So to be asked, they should be honored. I think they should, feel like it was a privilege to be in such an iconic book. And so, just about everybody. Now, once the book came out, a lot of people called and said, well, what about me? I've got a great story. Are you going to do a second book? That kind of stuff. And so I am considering doing a second series on it, so.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm gonna stay tuned so I can make sure I read that one. Very
Yeah, well,
cool.
that's great. Thanks.
So you've built a really huge financial firm and you're a movie producer, best-selling author. These goals, like now that you've achieved all of these big things, like what's the next big thing? Like besides this book, anything else? Big projects that you're working on? Because I know there's a ton. You have all these like what is the nonprofit organizations and you have a lot of charities that you work on. Like, is
Yeah.
there anything that you want to share that you're working on now?
Here's where I'm at now. I feel that I've been so blessed to be where I am in an early part of my life. I don't want to be I didn't want to be a multimillionaire, when I was 80. You know what I mean? I wanted to be rich and wealthy, to build a financial fortress around our family early in my career while I was young. And that way, once I've taken care of my family, then I can go off and help others. There's not a lot of people didn't have mothers like I did, didn't have fathers like I did, didn't have a wonderful family like I did and a wonderful upbringing. And that's what I want to do, is to add that value to other people who didn't have those things. And so at the end of the day, it's about providing hope, 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 which is, in my opinion, another acronym, HOPE, which is helping one person every day. So if this podcast here that you and I are doing could just reach, millions of people, but if we can just impact one person a day with this podcast show, then we have been a successful podcast today.
I agree. It's all about impacting people, and I love social media, YouTube, and everything. That's like one of the things I love about it is that it's right at your fingertips. Sometimes it's overkill if you're not intentional with what you put in your mind. But when you find that you can get so much value through things like this, and I just love that, and I thank you for being a part of my show because it's definitely adding a lot of value to our audience today, so thank you so much.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I value about my vision for success in the future. I would love to have financial freedom for one reason only, and I don't know if I've always believed this, just because my whole relationship with money before was so wrong. I learned
Yeah.
like everything backwards, but now, like, the reason why I want freedom is because I want to help more people. I want that freedom to be able to just give generously, to whatever cause I want to pursue, helping. So I think that is just so powerful, and a lot of people have that, they don't really understand that money has that power. It's not about all the things that you can get or have, or experience even, but like, if you can help other people with that kind of wealth, that is just amazing. That's truly what brings fulfillment in life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Just have everybody just at this stage, as we're, going into a new year, 2022. Just a couple thoughts here. Number one, I would tell people is to make sure that they just insulate their brain, their mind, and their thoughts from all the negativity and all the toxic stuff that the media is constantly sharing every second of the day. Okay. Because you got to be careful what you allow into your mind. And the second thing is to follow their internal GPS, right? Just like if I want to drive from here to, I don't know, wherever I want to go, I need to go and program and have something, a GPS system to help me navigate to where I want to go. So when I look at the word or the letters again, GPS, the letter G, and this is really important for people to know, is what are their goals? Okay, what is it? What do they need to get done? What is it that they want? You know, earlier we were talking about money, and I don't think that most people want money, but they want what money can get you, right? So if you go to Home Depot, you buy a drill. You don't buy a drill because you're like, oh, I just want a drill. You want the drill to get a hole or whatever you're trying to accomplish with the drill. So what are your goals? Not just to make money, but what else is it? So it's so important that you to list those down. The letter P, Bev, stands for your plans. And you've heard people say that people don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. So what are their plans? And meaning, how will they get this? How will they achieve their goals? Okay. How are they going to get it done? And then finally, the letter S stands for schedule. When are you going to get it done? When?
By when date?
That's right. What is that date? And get it done and have a deadline for yourself. Because once you create that deadline, what happens is it creates a sense of urgency. And when you have a sense of urgency, it creates momentum. Mm-hmm. You know, it was amazing. We had a party here at our house last night, literally like last night. And the things that we had to do to get done so that we can prepare by putting up all the Christmas lights and, you know, get everything ready and the chairs and the tables and oh my God. And I didn't know if we were even going to be able to pull it off in such a short period of time. But guess what? When there is a deadline and you know your guests are going to be there at 6:00, people didn't eat. Everybody was working like there was no tomorrow. And the adrenaline that we all had, does that make sense? Like, we ain't got time to eat. Does that make sense? Like, some people didn't even go to the bathroom. You know, they had to get the job done. And I got to tell you, people walked away last night saying it was literally one of the best parties they've ever been to, you know? So that's what happens when you have goals. You've got a plan and you make the decision to schedule that date. So
I love your acronyms. It makes it stick in your mind like forever. You know what I mean? Like that is such a powerful learning tool. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Before we end the interview, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about your title. How did you become a knight? I just find that very random, but very cool at the same time. Like, yeah. So how did that happen?
It's a great story. Well, first of all, it's crazy because both Arlene and I mean, she's always into the like princess movies. She watches Princess Diaries, you know, and the movie. And we've always been into that stuff. We love chivalry. We love all that, you know, the history behind that. And when we travel around the world, one of the things that Arlene and I do is we go out of our way to go and see castles, right? And palaces and places, just because we want to know, like, what was it like? I mean, you know, the imagination, like King Louis XIV, like, just, you know, we've always been interested in that stuff. And we always thought to ourselves, you know what? We're two Koreans, man. How are we ever going to get knighted and be a prince or a princess? And so like, it's not going to happen. You know, we grew up as peasants, you know? And so it's interesting because we started doing all this nonprofit work around the world. And so we started building child prosperity centers, which is a big fancy word for orphanages. Arlene wanted to build health clinics so that women can give birth to their babies and have the right equipment and the proper environments and places like that. So those are all things that we wanted to do. And so we started doing this all over the world. And, you know, we're not looking for recognition. It wasn't like we needed the UN to like see what we were doing, but it rolled up all the way to the royal family. of Cappadocia in Spain. And they basically came back and said, who find out who these people are. And then we got a call. I was actually driving one night. I was actually on my way to the Cheesecake Factory to meet some people for dinner. And my phone rang and it said unknown, but I thought, I'm going to pick it up anyway. And sure enough, it was the Duke of Aswan. And he basically said, he introduced himself and he said, listen, based on all the merits, all the things that you and your wife have done, we would like to knight you into the Royal Order of Constantine the Great in St. Helen. And I said, is this for real? Like for a moment, for about 5 minutes, I thought I was being pumped and I thought it was a joke and this and that. And literally 2 months later, we were getting knighted and that was it. I mean, it was one of those surreal moments. So it was pretty incredible, wonderful, magical experience.
Wow, very cool. I never met a knight before, so this is a very first experience for me. Very
Yeah.
cool story. I love it.
Yeah,
So,
we're not riding around on our white horses like the old days with armor, but we are out there like knights were in the old days. They would go out there and help the people who didn't have, they were protectors of the realm. And that's what we want to do today. We want to go out there and help people and protect people and get them to where they want to go.
the modern day knighthood at the
That's
round
right.
table. That's very
That's right.
cool. So I just want to thank you so much for bringing so much value in this short time. I wish that we could talk longer, but
Sure.
we are all good things must come to an end. But it hopefully it won't be the end of this relationship that we just started right now. Because you're
Of
such a
course not.
huge inspiration to me, and I hope to only stay connected with you so you can inspire each other more.
Sure.
Through
Yeah.
media like this, very powerful stuff. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, John, for doing this. I really appreciate you. And
Sure. Absolutely. It was had a lot of fun.
thank you, everybody, for joining us in Dark Horse Matters, the show about people, their passion, and their pursuit toward happiness. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and so that way you can know every time a new story is posted. So until next time, you all, be passionate.